Hello YouTube, this is the Galley La Podcast, and today we are going to be reviewing One Piece, Wano Act 3, so prepare for that.
Finally.
Please like and subscribe, and please like and subscribe if you haven't. This is Akainu Fanboy, that's Geboss. What's the most recent chapter on right now in the One Piece, Geboss? I'm trying to think.
1076, I think.
Yeah, so the potential spoiler warning up to there, keep that in mind, because I think I might want to make some references to the current arc, just as a contrast of quality and things of that nature. But first off, so we have the Odin flashback. I did enjoy it more.
On a reread rather than week to week.
Yes, and I did like how they did it in the anime, and I thought it was kind of interesting. Some of the character flaws I noticed more with Odin, he wouldn't take Roger's help, for example, and there's kind of a pride there that led to a lot of death and destruction. And then also, I think it was really good characterization for Kinemon and the Asura relationship, how there was like the cheating and the threats and the stealing, but then you also see him feel guilt about her potential death with the boar incident in the beginning. I also like the connection how Odin had with Kinemon too. I think he's like one of the few scabbards that was like really well done. What are your thoughts?
Well, I was going to ask, does this make you appreciate the scabbards a bit more? Because to be fair, we did kind of shit on them a lot.
So, okay. Kinemon, yes. Raizo, yes. The Minx, yeah. Ashura Joju, no, but I'll get more into that later. But I'd say some of them, yes. Some of them, no. If anything, it made them even look worse in some ways, just kind of like to see the disparity between how they were handled. Just reflecting, I did like kind of the Orochi Yasue Servant connection too. I think there are kind of some cool setups that age like, whoa, that's kind of brutal how that aged later on, that relationship, and I don't know, there were like cool scenes, like they had the cleanup scabbards too when they needed to be like the counselors of Odin, so I did like that a lot too, and I don't know. So I'd say like there were some good parts going into it, there were like some cool lore things. Obviously with Toki coming back like 800 years old, you used to had Marco saying that there's 10 to 20 million islands in chapter 964. You get to see like the young Teach, Jozu, Marco, Buggy, Shanks. And so there were a lot of cool elements there, but I did kind of find it interesting how like going through the Orochi like history, it's really not that tragic how he died really when you think about it, because he started killing his ancestor started killing all the other daimyo,
Yeah.
Right? It's just like, it's not the most sympathetic retelling of history. It's not like the Uchiha, for example, it's not that level of tragedy, if you will,
Yeah. It's, if anything, it just makes him like, yeah, we want to see this person killed. It doesn't really, he's just kind of evil for, he is kind of like a victim of circumstances. Like his family did it, but he was the one that ultimately chose to do that, which is kind of in contrast to, this is skipping all the way to the end of the arc, but with him and Hiyori, Hiyori couldn't bring herself to kill him. Denjiro had to do it. So she, despite all that he did, she couldn't bring herself to do that.
Right. One little theme I did notice here was that the old hag, when she's talking to Orochi for the first time, she had the same message at Doflamingo from Marineford War, he who stands at the top writes the rules. That's what she says. And then Doflamingo says, like, the Navy's justice, pirates are evil. Whoever wins will decide what is justice, what is evil. Something to that effect, right? And I noticed the characters who, like, have that message in One Piece tend to be some of the most evil people in One Piece,
Yeah.
Because obviously Dofi, he enslaved tons of humans, just butchered tons of people, sliced his dad's head off, killed his brother, took over a kingdom, was willing to execute his whole crew and the whole nation. And then you have the old hag. Similarly, you know, she led to a really disastrous, terrible war, does a lot of treachery, and then she led to Odin losing in a really tricky, shitty way. Like, I think it is interesting in that respect how, I guess you could say, like, moral relativist, if you will. Like, whenever Oda, like, puts this message into their mouths, basically, like, there's no good or evil, it's just who's in control. These tend to be the worst people in the series, usually, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, you can be like, yeah, like, there's a sense in that's true, but the people who are, like, super skeptical, you know, like, who say, like, there's no good or evil in the series are, like, usually the worst characters, however. So, I don't know. I did appreciate that little connection. And, I did thought it was cool in chapter 967 how Frankie was abandoned by pirates. That was a cool little lore piece we might see developed on later, you know?
Yeah, I think that eventually we're going to get more flashbacks with maybe with Frankie and definitely Brooke. I feel like we're going to get more with him because there's still so much that we don't know about him. But
yeah,
but I was going to say my favorite part of the flashbacks is just anything to do with Whitebeard and Roger. Like,
yeah,
though, just seeing them in their prime, like, it's just so cool to see. And this like put Roger up on the level of like Luffy because they're so similar of a character that it's hard to dislike him.
And it was cool to see Scopper into the story too, because we usually only hear him like referenced or seen to the side, you know. But you actually got to see some of his character as well.
Yeah, Scopper believers think that he visited Crocus in that one cover story.
Yes.
We'll eventually learn who that is.
We'll eventually learn. So yeah, I agree. That was like the best part. I do appreciate Odin. I like Odin's character more. I didn't like him much the first time, but going through it, I noticed like one of his worst flaws was never being able to explain himself, you know, for his actions, and that kind of led to a tragedy at the end, you know. But I think it's a combination of samurai pride and arrogance in a little bit, you know, and not wanting people's help that led to so much unnecessary bloodshed.
Yeah.
When you think about it.
Well, I think it also is just the culture that like Wano is in because they're an isolationist nation. Like they don't want help from the outside, so that kind of relates to how he doesn't ask for help
and then they're eventually saved from someone on the outside. Like that's how they get their salvation in a way, right?
Yeah.
You know, so kind of like the moral of the story, he rejected Roger, like the parallel to Luffy, right? When you think about it, when he should have had their help in the beginning, you know. Same with Whitebeard too, but that's a whole nother thing. Yeah, I did like how Kaido killed the old hag and the rest of, you know, it was tragic, it was sad. I wouldn't say it was the saddest flashback I've seen in my life. In One
Piece.
One Piece in my life too. Yeah, I guess that applies to that too. But I think there's far more. But I thought it was good though. I think it was pretty solid overall. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think that the I don't know, rereading it, I really liked Odin's sacrifice with him in the oil. It's a good build up to what we thought was going to happen with Wano. But it didn't necessarily turn out how we expected it to turn out. And I was just going to also say, I don't know if it's just the way that the Oda did the panels or anything, but even knowing now, it's still hard to tell for sure that Toki died.
Yeah.
Like it's like one little panel. They made that infinitely more clear in the anime, which is kind of sad to say that. Like, I think that the anime is the best way to experience Wano.
100% agree, and I will probably keep on saying the anime did better with this, throughout this whole arc. I'm gonna start getting into the negatives. I'm just gonna start jumping into it because there's gonna be a lot.
Okay.
Everybody heard about the people who watch this, like, they heard our treatment of 2 and 1. They were not nearly as critical, hopeful, but the only thing that made those worse was Act 3 retroactively, making them worse.
Yeah.
So let's see here. Kanjuro being the traitor was meh. Did not care. Could care less. Didn't feel a sense of betrayal or sadness of him betraying.
I feel like if Kanjuro had a little bit more characterization, like if he was more, I think even Raizo was more memorable. In just his one appearance in Zou than Kanjuro had in, like, because he was in Dressrosa and everything, and even in, like, the flashbacks, he didn't really have much character. And I understand, like, in the setup to everything, like, he wasn't involved in, like, recruiting people, but that's because he was the traitor, and that didn't have his it didn't give his a chance for his character to really be fleshed out. But yeah, that's what I have to say about Kanjuro. Also, are we just going, like, full into like, his character throughout the whole arc? Because I have more to say about that.
Yeah, let's just knock it out here. Yeah.
Okay.
I would say, okay, there were characters I thought that could have been the traitor. So I never thought Kinemon was the traitor, but, like, that's an example of a well-developed character where it would freaking sting if he actually was the traitor.
Yeah.
Others, before we got into more info, it had to be from someone from the Scabbards. For a time I thought it was Carrot, right?
I still don't know how you how you came up with that.
Okay, there was the Beaver card on Zou and everything. That's why I thought that.
Okay.
That's how Jack and them got up, basically.
Okay.
And I think, like, yeah, that would actually hurt a lot, right? Because she's been with the crew a lot, you know, and she's had, like, a lot of screen time, Kanjuro just doesn't meet or even more crazier, like, one of the Mink Dukes, right? That's how like, okay, that's, like, insane, that's terrible. How could you do that? With Kanjuro, that wasn't the case. And with him, it's just kind of like, I also kind of was bullshit how he got Momo. How he, like, kidnapped him, Like, you have all these heavy tiers there. Like, Kid, Law, Sanji, Luffy. And you can't take him down, I thought that was kind of bullshit a little bit.
Yeah.
But his character was just kind of boring. He didn't really accomplish much of anything.
Yeah. So.
And go. Yeah.
Yeah, he was one of the biggest disappointments in this arc for me, because, like, if he had, like, a big, like, fight in the manga, because in the anime we saw him fight Kiku, but it was like they had, like, one clash and then it was off-screened in the manga. And it was supposed to be, like, a really sad moment, like, oh, we killed Kanjuro, like, even though he was a scumbag, he was one of us, but it's like, and then that was a fake out, but like, we didn't, I didn't really care, because he was taken out too easily. Like, if Kinemon's main opponent was Kanjuro, I think that would have been better.
Yeah. And also, I know I'm gonna seem like a bloodlust freak at this point, but it's just, like, not nearly enough people died that needed to die in this arc, right? So he should have, like, introduced himself by killing one of the Scabbards, Like, let's just say he, like, kills Raizo. And then that's how he's introduced. And then Raizo's actually dead. It's not a fucking fake out. And then there was no more fake outs of Kanjuro throughout the whole thing, right? And then Kinemon actually kills Kanjuro. That would be good. That would actually be really epic. But that didn't happen.
Yeah. Well, if we're going all out with this point with Kanjuro, him coming back was stupid. We got the Odin.
Oh, yeah.
We got the Odin fake out thing for one chapter. That was him, and then he kills Ashura Doji.
So trash, but yeah, continue.
Yeah, we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
But and then Kinemon does kill him, but then he creates the fire demon. There's just so much going on during this whole thing. I feel like I don't want to blame. I don't know who to blame, Oda or the editor, because Oda has released a lot of stuff like, oh, I wish I could have put this in, but I feel like the ending. We talked about this in our weekly series, how we felt that the ending of Wano was really rushed to meet the deadline. To meet the deadline with Film Red. So
and there's a difference between something being rushed and something being fast-paced, because Egghead is fast-paced, but it's not rushed. It feels good. It's a good pace.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. This is insanely bad. The end, and we'll get more to that later, but sorry, continue. I just wanted to get that point in.
Yeah, just the fire spirit, which ultimately, did it accomplish anything besides just adding more chaos to the
Nope.
Yeah, it was going after the bombs, which gave Yamato something to do. But yeah, I feel like if Kanjuro and the best case scenario for me would have been if Kanjuro and Kinemon had a full out fight.
Yeah.
But
then he got in one body,
Mm-hmm.
Right. You say, oh, what about Ashura Doji? Okay, that's crap, and we'll get to that later. But that's different. Okay, Jinbei entrance, underwhelming. All he does is take out fodder. There is no explanation how he got rid of. There was no explanation in how he got away from Big Mom, and I think it made Whole Cake retroactively worse. But yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked about this before we even started the channel. It was just not. It was so underwhelming, because we thought that Jinbei was going to come back and it was going to be this whole thing, oh, he had to what wasn't there? I'm going back through the chapter really quick, where they asked what went on with the Sun Pirates, and he didn't give a straight up answer or something, and we thought that they were going to be dead, but the anime disconfirmed that, they all just got away from Big Mom. Which,
with the exception of Yonji and Niji, they're the only ones that got it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that just kind of lessens the threat of the Yonko crew, which also
another L for Big Mom, who would have saw it coming.
Yeah.
I mean, it must be a day that ends in Y. Big Mom took it out,
Yeah.
It's how pathetic are you? You have your whole fleet there, and a battered up Germa, and a battered up Fishman pirates, and you couldn't capture or kill off any of them.
I mean,
except Yonji and Niji.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, with the Fishman pirates, they could escape underwater, but
it's a Yonko though. She could have made a homie out of the ocean, like she did earlier with the wave.
Maybe Oda forgot. I don't know.
I'm just saying that the ending of Whole Cake was phenomenal, and it just got retroactively worse because of this arc.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love Jinbei being on the crew, but let there be some sacrifice.
Well, speaking of Jinbei being on the crew, we had that whole moment where they were gonna induct him in, and it's no, wait, we need to wait for after we won for it. And did we even get that scene where he's officially welcomed into the crew?
The only place I could think of is where he's sitting by himself at the table with this.
Really great welcome there.
Yeah. That's it, really. Yeah.
I'm trying to think if the beginning of Egghead had anything. Because usually, if it's... Because usually they have it after a big arc. So
yeah. Hopefully they add that in the anime, maybe.
Yeah. I feel like they're gonna expand a lot on the ending of the arc with the anime.
They have to, because I love Jinbei and I love his role in the crew, but it was just done dirty. But I'm gonna start getting into the war.
Yep.
I'm heated up right now. I don't know. My blood pressure got it up like out of nowhere. I wasn't even expecting. But so okay. So you have Dentaro leading the southern forces. Kinemon leads the eastern forces. And then initially, did this distinction change anything? Can you recall a great moment at the eastern front versus the southern front during this war?
No, because all the scabbards just ended up on the roof anyway, and it just seemed like all the samurai just kind of blended into the crowd and then fought.
Yep, that's it. And then that was the war.
Yeah.
That was the war. And I'm going to say this over and over. The bad guys did not make any W's during the whole war. It was just perpetual L's. Right? Now let's contrast. You can say, oh, well, One Piece isn't a strategic manga like Kingdom. Why, stop with these expectations. Okay. No, let's just go to this thing called Marineford, right? Where you had, let's say, you had the Vice Admirals chopping people up, and then you had the Vice Admiral Giants come out, doing some damage, and then you had Oars come in, wipe out the Vice Admirals, and then you had Oars go up and get knocked out by the Shishibukai, right? And then the Shishibukai started clashing with more of the Whitebeard pirates. See, that's actually like a back and forth, and then the Pacifistas come out with Sentomaru.
Exactly.
That was really cool. And I just listed out like 5 distinct moments in that arc of different strategies. Or when they raised up the walls, right? So that they were all stuck in there, and then Akainu did his Fire Fist attack.
Yeah.
That's a war. This is just a mosh pit shitfest with crappy characters, Like, that's why any comparisons to this and Marineford are just laughable,
Yeah. This is where I especially felt like I don't know what else to call it but bloat of the cast. Because I'm not even comparing this not even to Marineford, but to Enies Lobby, where you're also storming an enemy force with far less number of crew, and so you get the sacrifices with like the big sea beasts. I forget if it was Sodom or Gomorrah. You get that. You like have the tension. They have to lower the drawbridge and everything. The Straw Hats have to leave all the Galley La people behind and the Frankie family for them to fend off the rest of it while they take care of CP9. It's a clear division of everything.
And then you have the Buster Call hanging in the background.
Yeah, and it's because when you're in the CP9 tower, it's like, okay, we're here now, we're dealing with the CP9 people, whereas Onigashima is just the same multi-tier building, and it's like, okay, we're on this floor and then this floor, and it's just like there's not too much to differentiate the setting. More so than because even think about the main thing is the roof on Onigashima, whereas Enies Lobby, you have Jabura's room with like the Japanese garden. You have Khalifa's bathroom. You have Fukuro and Frankie and Kumadori and Chopper fighting in the kitchen and the freezer. And then you have Luffy fighting in like the underground tunnel thing. So you have distinct locations for each of this. And the one that like stands out in my head really from Onigashima is the roof. You have the floor where like everything's happening, and then you have the who's room, which has like scratching posts because they're cats.
Yep.
And that's pretty much it.
And Black Maria's room, and that's it really.
Yeah.
There wasn't really anything distinct about it. It was just her in a room.
Yeah. Like with Khalifa, it's a bathroom and she has her bubble powers. That's how it relates together.
Yeah.
Um,
And then, yeah, the cola where Frankie gets the cola fighting,
Yeah.
yeah. And then so it's just like, yeah, that's a really good point actually. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, that's a good contrast there too, and it's memorable. On all those scenes you popped up, just immediately hit me.
Yeah.
Like, just it's memorable, you know. And kind of going off of that, they added like no characterization with who's who, or Sasaki about being former captains.
Yeah. Okay, so the Toby Roppo, I feel like this has a lot in common with Enies Lobby, kind of, for me at least. Especially with like the Flying Six relating to the CP9, in terms of like what was supposed to be their levels of hype. But the only real memorable ones are Ulti and Page 1, Black Maria, Who's Who, but just because of his lore, and then Sasaki's pretty forgettable in terms of character.
Yeah, and I would just say even with the CP9 agents, like I think like with Jabra, we got introduced to him like really quickly, and I think he had a fair amount of character. I know he's pretty much a gag, right? But he's, you know, good amount. Same with Bluno. You know, Kumadori. Like a lot of these guys were gaggy characters, but it was just like, I don't know. And also, and maybe we should just kind of go roughly over the fights real quick, or maybe we could lead up for later. But none of the fights felt intense to me in the Flying Six.
No.
They were all really one-sided.
Yeah, not at all.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll throw that in there. But I have some positive things before we get into the fights. But I enjoyed the Otama and Kaido men wasting food thing, and that was a trigger for Zoro and Luffy going off. Liked that a lot. And I also like the Kid Apu trigger. You know, with the betrayal.
If only that lasted till the end of the end of the arc.
Dude, your observation hockey is like super high right now, because that's exactly what I was gonna say. You know, like it's just they got dropped like so quickly, and that's like one of a really good character motivation for Kid. Oh yeah. Oh wait, here's another thing. Why did Kid join the Alliance?
Yeah, that's true.
Never explained. Never explained at all.
Yeah,
because I've betrayed. This hurts so much, which is great for his character, right? You know, and he's a prideful guy, and then he comes and enjoys back. No reason.
Yeah, because I think the last we saw of him before he showed up on with Luffy and Law was him leaving the jail.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's just, again, never explained, right? Never explained that. You know, and he's just like one of the more main characters now in the series. It's okay, right? And then.
Yeah.
Though Apu did have a good showing against Zoro and Luffy, and I really enjoyed that part. I wish Hawkins had more of a showing like that, and I'll get more on that later.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the Apu, that was fun to read, actually, when it first came out, because we were...
Yeah.
This was like one of the... Because we complained that Zoro hasn't really taken a lot of damage since the time skip, really. But just seeing him just get like completely like cut open from Apu of all people, and him taking out Luffy was just hilarious. Yeah.
And another hilarious part was Marco knocking off the Big Mom boat. That was just actually really fantastic and a good interest for him, actually. That was great.
Yeah, well, that also brings up. I feel like Oda was going to do something else with Marco, because last time we saw him, he was like, oh, Nekomamushi, give this message to Luffy when you see him. And then he's like, oh, actually, you don't need to do that. I'm here anyway.
Yeah.
And, yeah, that's just kind of felt weird. But it always felt like he was planned to be a part of Onigashima.
Sure. Yeah. I agree. And I will say the only Flying Six member I really enjoyed was Ulti. I love her character. I think she's like the only one that really got a good characterization. She got more than Drake, that's for sure.
I don't even count Drake as part of the Flying Six because he betrays them and is part of Sword.
Right. but her interaction with Luffy, both combat and personality, I actually really freaking loved it. I thought it was great.
Yeah. Also,
and then sorry, go.
Oh, just really quick. Just with page 1, I feel like he was like a completely different character than who we saw fighting Sanji.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because he seemed like almost like completely like ferocious, whereas here he's just kind of like being bullied by Ulti the whole time.
Yeah, didn't really do anything impressive for the rest of the war either, you know.
Yeah.
And then first fake out death, 985, Orochi being beheaded by Kaido. There's a part of me I wish he just died there, to be honest. Like I did enjoy his interaction with Hiyori and Dendro and all that stuff, but one, I was so OD'd on fake outs. Maybe that was the only fake out I'd be okay with it, but I do kind of like how sudden and crazy it was. Kaido just chopping his head off, you know. And I think that would be a fitting end for him, right? The great betrayer, him, you know, all this stuff, and then his main asset just like beheads him. Okay, that's it. Yeah, you know. I think that would have been a cooler way to have him go out, personally. Even though I did enjoy the way he went out.
I mean, he does have a legit reason for doing it because of his 8-headed serpent or dragon devil fruit. So there is that, but that's the only thing.
Yeah, I think it would be cooler for the story, you know, if One Piece had more moments like that, you know, just like some really shocking moments like that. But and then we had a fake out Conjuro, chapter 96, and then. But the actually one thing I did love in chapter 96 was the Momo Sanji dynamic, where Momo said his name and he wasn't scared to renounce it, and Sanji's like, "Hey, that's awesome that you're proud of your name," and I thought that was Momo's character really took off well towards the end, and I actually like Momo, and I used to hate him, so Oda really handled him well. And then he also showcases that dynamic of character with Sanji too, you know, a similar dynamic. And so that was actually really good character moment in that respect with Oda doing that. And then I did like the mink transformations as well with the Sulong. I thought that was good.
Oh yeah. So we're getting into the roof fights now.
Yeah, we're getting there. And one last thing, one little quick side note: Pound being alive in the cover story was trash, and it made Whole Cake Island worse. And that's it. You know, and I'm just gonna keep it like that. So
the will of P. It's strong.
But I did want to see more of Jack fighting the Minks. Again, I want to see more of a war. You know, and Jack in the anime they did that, which was a lot better too. Thoughts on that?
So I did like the scabbards like taking like inflicting wounds on Kaido and everything, and them going up to the roof. But it seems like we're skipping over a character, but we might get to her later.
We'll get to that later. Just sorry about that. Yeah, just kind of how I think.
But Jack. It seemed kind of weird that he was this big threat on Zoe. Although I guess it could be chalked up to him fighting like a whole army of Sulongs, which kind of elevates his strength even more, because we see what Sulongs can do. I mean, compared to what King and Queen kind of pulled off during this war.
Yeah.
And who they fought.
Right.
And he's supposed to be the weakest out of all of them.
Yeah, totally.
I think it would have been cool just if King fought or if Jack fought Jinbei, because that would have been a good power, because it's kind of like the new monster trio, subtracting Luffy.
Yeah.
But
that's a good point. Yeah.
But I think it's also in character for Ino Arashi to have done it.
Yes, agreed. So when we get to the scabbards fighting Kaido, I thought it was cool. Well done. I liked all that. Real quick, I did like the Sanji King clash too. I thought that was dope. But anyways,
Yeah.
in chapter 993, Kiku should have died. Just throwing that out there. I'm gonna be saying that a lot. Kiku should have died in that chapter when the arm got chopped off. You know.
Yeah. Actually, I kind of like that. That whole exchange, like she gets her arm cut off, and then she's immediately like, "Oh no, it doesn't bother me at all." I actually kind of like that for her character.
So, yeah, it's just for me, Kaido kills no one in this arc.
Yeah.
I just want to lay that out there. The Yonko are scary, yeah. Even though the admirals have way more bodies, than they do. But anyways,
I mean, honestly, in Whole Cake, Big Mom was much more of a threat than I feel. Like, I felt more afraid of Big Mom because she was just so unpredictable, rather than Kaido just being like, "Oh, I'm just unstoppable. You can't take me down," or "I'm taking all this damage, but it's not affecting me."
Yeah, and well, here's another thing too. Oda never really explained her powers in detail. Because remember, she's like, "Oh, I don't have enough soul weapons to spare on Marco," and then they never really elaborate on that, really. How that works. It's just kind of weird to me. And then you need Paraspero to jump in to take care of it, so it's kind of odd, I guess.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's kind of weird how just Paraspero was the only one to make it off the ship, and then we get no mention of what happened to the rest of them.
Nope.
It's just, unless like, it's just like, okay, I'm writing them completely out of the story, or Big Mom's gonna come back.
It would have been cool if, like, I don't know, Mondor using his book ability, for example. Like, to spawn them on the map or something. Like, oh, hey, we're actually winning, and no, here comes the Big Mom Pirates.
Yeah.
There was no back and forth in this war. It's just WWW good guys,
Yeah. Well, I feel like we do spend a lot of time with the CP0 agents, like with the chess pieces and everything. Oh, we have this many people, and I don't feel like that added any tension, really. Because it's like, okay, we know that the good guys are gonna just win this eventually. But
yeah.
Where were we in the fights?
Yeah. Let's just start going into the Yamato topic a little bit, but the Ace flashback was fine. Alright, I'll drop a bomb here. I think after reading this arc, I like Yamato more, but I think Yamato's character was kind of superfluous and unnecessary, and took away from a lot of other characters in this arc, and a lot of the negatives I brought to you. I was kind of thinking the Yamato Ace flashback was completely superfluous when looking back on it,
Well, one of the things that pops off the top of my head with that flashback is the whole thing that Yamato actually knows Luffy's dream, because it's the same as Roger's. So,
so like, was that really needed? I guess is what I would push back with a little bit on that.
So, I think it would have been needed. It would have been interesting if she actually joined the crew, which is the big thing with Yamato, is that we spend so much time on her character, that even in our weekly reviews, we tended to shit on her a lot. But I feel like it was more in jest, more so than anything. But just because people were so dead set on her joining. And I was just like, okay, she's probably going to join, but I'm going to wait for the actual word to see if she is.
I was to the end, I was pretty confident, though. Like, she wasn't joining, though.
Yeah.
Towards the end, but yeah.
Yeah. But but just the amount of time we spend on her. Like, she should have gotten the same amount of screen time that like Polly in Eni's Lobby did.
Yeah, good point.
Like,
well, that's why I think the Ace thing was like overkill. It's like you already had that with Otama.
Yeah, and we had the flashback when she was a kid with all the samurai in the cave.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You get 2 flashbacks and you're not even a Straw Hat.
We get her fighting with Kaido. We get her whole adventure trying to save the stuff with the bombs and her thing with Momonosuke.
Yep.
It's just a lot of a character that's not being moved forward as a part of the main cast.
And think of how all those panels could have been used for all the stuff we've critiqued so far.
So, or stuff that gets revealed in SBSs. So, shortly before we're recording this, I think maybe... Was it revealed yesterday? Because that's when I first heard about it.
I think so, yeah.
About Zoro's whole family lineage is just dumped in an SBS. And how he's related to, was it the Shimotskis? And makes him a descendant of Ryuma. Which means that, like, he actually did, like, inherit Shisui, like, kind of legitimately. Because it would have been passed down in the family. Like, we did get some of the flashbacks of that. We got flashbacks with Zoro when he was fighting King, but if we had gotten that would have tied in so much more to his connection with Wano, because I feel like that's a whole thing with Zoro. This could have been a Zoro, like, more focused arc, like, not so much like Sanji with Whole Cake, but he could have played a much bigger role, because Whole Cake was like Sanji's, like, big arc.
Yeah, and it still keeps on unfolding in this arc, which is one of the few strengths of Act 3, in my opinion. But yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. Like, again, I'm thinking this is more of like an editorial thing more than Oda himself, because he seems like he wanted to address this. Unless...
Yeah, but what did Yamato add to the story, would you say? Like, in a positive way?
I guess my thinking of an answer is the answer. I can't really think of anything, like, off the top of my head.
You could say, like, oh, she held off Kaido. Marco could have done that.
We got a whole lot of just unnecessary debates about her gender. How about that?
Oh, that was the highlight of Wano. I treasured those moments. It just made me sleep soundly every night after having those discussions. And I think when it comes to, oh, well, she was mean. We needed to show how Kaido was a jerk as a dad. Oh, whoa, Kaido's a jerk? Like, enslaving people and torturing people and poisoning people?
Yeah.
I didn't think he would be a bad dad, too. Wow. That, She told Odin, like, she really admired him. Oh, like everybody else in this arc. Like...
Yeah.
She's cool as a character, though, right? I get that, and I like her, actually.
And I think...
But I'm saying, like, was she worth the panels? No.
I think we addressed this in our Act 2 review, how if she was incorporated into, like, the Odin flashback, I think it would have been more interesting. To have her, like, because it feels like she's just kind of plopped into the story, like, oh, this is Kaido's son, oh, she's actually a girl, oh, she's actually Odin, and I don't know. I guess her ultimate role, which is what Oda ended up doing, is leaving her on Wano to be its protector.
And I'm gonna sarcastic or like be kind of a little dick and say right back, like, oh, well, we have these people called the Scabbards for that, Like,
yeah, but some of them died.
One. Well, wait, I guess 2, yes, but
yeah.
It's like, oh, Wano has the strongest samurai, and that's why the Marines can't come in, and then they're all pretty weak. That's another critique too, right? And so, yeah, I get it. People like Yamato, but it's just like you can't seriously say with a straight face she added so much to this arc. You know?
I mean, she's a cool character, but like, but like design and like powers and everything, she needs to function in the story better. Maybe we're just being too biased, but again, just
I know it was genuinely crazy reading a second time to see how much time she got for panels.
Yeah,
and just seeing all the just okay. Here's some more negatives just off the top of my head. Brook didn't get a fight. Usopp didn't get a fight. And I'll get into this for chapter 999. We didn't find out how the fish fruit was given from Big Mom to Kaido at all because
that's
the
gonna
flashback was.
That's gonna be in a Rock's flashback. I guarantee it.
Yeah, but it's not like, oh, this was the main villain, and getting his fruit is actually like critical to like understanding him, you know. And it's also the only time we'll see Big Mom and Kaido fight together. So maybe finding more about their relationship was essential to their characterization, you know. Like, but we didn't get any of that. Is what I mean, you know. Like, yeah, maybe we can save the flashback thing for later. I'm just saying there's so much undeveloped in this story that we just kind of used on Yamato, you know? Like, and she's cool, but she's not like a phenomenal character, you know? She's not like a Trafalgar Law or like a, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
She's like not up there. And then chapter 1000 though, okay, I'll try to say something positive. It was a really great chapter. Loved the Kiddymon Luffy scene, and the anime they did a particularly great job at it. It was a 10 out of 10 chapter, worthy of being chapter 1000.
Yep. So, yeah, just further going along with that, I think the fight with everyone on the rooftop was really, really good. Roof Piece lived up to the hype.
Yes.
Because we can kind of just meme on it, but just in terms of like the choreography, seeing like we get to see basically them all going all out. And we get the whole thing with Kaido acknowledging Luffy's strength in terms of like the big names of the verse.
And Big Mom has some really cool attacks too. I really enjoyed her attacks.
Yeah. And plus we even get like comedy with like Big Mom launching her fireballs and them like, oh, I'm not dodging, you guys dodge.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel though that this also kind of caused a what's the right word for it? The discussion that like, oh, Zoro's so outclassing Sanji because he was up on the roof.
Yeah.
And look at what he did compared to Sanji. Which to be fair, he was very impressive in this. But if Sanji was up here, I feel like he would have done just as well.
Yeah, I know that I will set off some people, but it's just a different fighting style, and like I agree. Like obviously, Killer I said did a comparable amount of work on there, you know. And you know, look what he accomplished. Now, I think Oda in some ways favors Zoro more in the sense of these flashy attacks and stuff like that as a fighter, you know. But then Sanji's character is more deeply like treasured and developed by Oda, though, where it's not even close. And maybe this is, I used to like Zoro a lot more in the pre-time skip, and I've said this over, and I know this comes from the Sanji stand, so whatever, take a grain of salt. But one thing I kind of felt cheap with Zoro, it's like, oh, I learned Kinnemon's fire slashing move. Okay. Oh yeah, I can float in the air with my sword bounce. Okay. Oh yeah, and here's Enma. Okay. And oh yeah, now I have Conqueror's Hockey. I think the Conqueror's Hockey was the only thing that was like prepared for, set up. You know, the other stuff just kind of felt like, here you go. You know, because he is so lacking in with a character, and they could have added more of the characterization with his lineage.